We forgot who was going to introduce this week. I think it's your turn.
It might be mine.
I think, yeah, episode 11, I know that.
Hello, welcome to Almost. Start again. Right. Hello, welcome to Almost in Focus, episode 11. We have very little planned for this episode.
Unlike all the other ones where we have lots of plans.
Yeah, well, yeah, totally. So, to give you some background on how this whole podcast started is Toby.
Yes.
There he is.
Hello.
Toby and I, we talk pretty much every morning on our commute to work, setting the world to rights, talking about photographic news that we've heard, exhibitions that we've wanted to see and not been able to because we don't have time, project ideas, anything and everything photographic. This week, we've not done that because we're both teachers. We're not
Yeah.
commuting. It's half term.
Yeah. It's been odd. We've not had our morning therapy sessions. Yeah, we have our little, like I say, our little morning chats. And so this week, I don't think I've spoken to you more than 5 minutes, which is very unusual for us.
Yeah, just a few texts and so on, but it's
Yeah.
been really it.
Yeah. Are you still alive? ... Send help.
So this week's podcast is making up for a week of not talking to each other.
Yeah, this is essentially us catching up on everything that hasn't been said this week.
How are you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sat here with a cup of tea in the living room with a duck sat on my lap. It's a fairly standard Sunday evening. We're recording on Sunday, guys. There you go. That's how much dedication we have. No, yeah, it's been an interesting week. I had many photographic plans. The goal was finish all the films in all the cameras. Finish all the film in all the cameras. Get that sorted. Just stop being precious. Get out there and shoot. And it rained every single day except for today. So that didn't really happen in the way I wanted it to. I did go out and I did shoot. I actually used the photographer's playbook. And in there's a project where it says, go out, walk 10 steps, see what you see. Walk another 10 steps, see what you see. Jot it all down, but don't take any pictures. Then go back out with your camera and see what you can make with those notes. So that was kind of my photographic goal this week. And yeah, I've shot some film. I haven't finished all of the film in all of the cameras, but I've finished a couple of rolls, which I'll get processed this week. Or maybe next week. We'll see when I get a chance to get into town to get them processed. But anyway, and what I did discover, along with dog walkers and various sort of cliched photos that I tried to avoid taking, was a growing population of tent dwellers, which touches on a topic we've discussed before, which is, photographing people who are homeless and sort of photographing people with a different position to you, a sort of different part of society to you. Didn't really take any pictures, but I did have some conversations with some I'm going to call them tent dwellers because I don't feel like they're homeless necessarily. They weren't homeless. All of them weren't homeless by choice. Some were sort of more about a nomadic lifestyle than they were about
Okay.
just they had nowhere to live. But there was a combination of both, all kind of in little groups of tents, and they've put the tents up together, I think mostly for safety. They feel safer in groups. But the tents are in weird places. So there's one not far from where I live, to be fair, which is outside the city centre, up against a train. There's fences to a train track, and there's some bushes, and there's this tent just secluded just inside the bushes. And it's quite interesting that one actually is on its own, and there was no one in there when I went to speak to see what they were doing. So I don't know them particularly, but it was just interesting. It was sort of secluded little spot off the main road and by the train tracks, which I thought was quite interesting, where we choose to pitch up. Others were in graveyards. There's a churchyard in the centre of Lincoln, which now has one of these little tent communities in. So that's kind of interesting.
So is that more of a eco village kind of
Yeah.
scenario, or is it more of a homeless tent city
It's sort
construction?
of it's a bit of both, I think. I think some of them are a traditional homeless, people who are down and out, not lucky people, I guess. Some of them seem more embracing of a nomadic life. There was more young people than I would like to have seen. Uh, and you have to take what people say to you with a pinch of salt. You know, I would say there was certainly some of them were substance abuse issues there, purely by, not everyone there, but some were, some weren't. So, but I think the idea is that some of them are actually by choice living this lifestyle, and some on the outskirts are more just your sort of, like I say, down and outs. But finding tent life is to be better than just cardboard boxes in a doorway, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think that if you're in a homeless situation, the tent makes a big difference. Surely, yes, mate. Well, what was it? 50 odd days of rain or something ridiculous. Can't imagine
It's
that's
been horrendous. Yeah.
so to live outside and have to get into a shelter every night. Hopefully, it is difficult. So I think that there's definitely scope for a project there, but very few photos actually taken. Lots of talking. Whether they'll still be there when I go back next time, I'm not sure because I did see the police moving on some people sort of adjacent to this tent city who were begging, which I believe is probably illegal. I'm not entirely sure, but the police were being quite firm about moving this guy on. Didn't sit right with me, but unfortunately, I think you have to accept that the police have got a difficult job to do there. It's not pleasant to move someone on who's homeless, who sat with a sleeping bag and all their worldly belongings, but it's also realistically it is their job to move them on. But I feel like there can be more done. But
Yeah.
we're in a stretched society.
I remember a few years ago, I photographed a eco village, just probably about 10 years ago now. And there was a group of people in this eco village who had came or had come to it together. And they came from a similar kind of setup, which was a tent city or like I think it was a climate protest
Mm.
in central London that was around Speaker's Corner kind of area, so near
Yeah.
Parliament. And when that tent city got closed down, they all moved into this eco village just outside of Windsor. Runnymede, it's not there anymore. It's now housing,
Mm.
very expensive housing, which, there's a
Well,
certain sense of irony.
yeah, just
But yeah, the community that they built was for a long time very, very positive.
mm.
And they were very good to try and keep people out of, becoming members of their community, their
Yeah.
village, if they felt they were going to bring a negative tone or
Yeah,
negative
well,
atmosphere
obviously.
onto the place.
I think it's sad that I mean, the eco village is far more positive. I just think it's sad that we've got in 2026 people living in tents, not necessarily by
Yeah.
choice, but.
It was one of the few positives I think that came out of the pandemic
Mm.
was, is how, suddenly all these people who had been, with nowhere to live, suddenly were all in hotels,
Yeah, managed to house them. Yeah.
and yes, it costs you know, the government and therefore the
Yeah.
taxpayer a lot of money to do so, but suddenly, no one was in a situation where they had to live on the streets, or at
No.
least very few people. I'm not going to pretend that
Yeah.
every single
Yeah, fix
person,
everything.
but you know, for a while, we're in a situation where these people were able to have a roof over their heads and try and get themselves back on their feet.
Yeah.
You know,
Like I say, I mean, I think it's always gonna be a big we've got very deep very fast today, but it's
we
always gonna
have.
be it's always gonna be a difficult problem to negotiate, but I think photographically, as we've said before, if you're gonna do it, you need to get to know these people, and that's sort of the first steps I've made with this. Whether this becomes anything or not, we shall see, but it was interesting, if nothing else, just to talk to people, which ultimately
It's definitely worth pursuing. I mean, in terms of that kind of the investigative journalism
mm,
kind of skill set that we haven't used so much necessarily from uni.
no, exactly, it's there, stretch the muscles, otherwise they wither and die. No, it was just something to do. Than that, I think I've been very photographically barren for the week. But sometimes you need a break, you need downtime. As everyone who listens to this podcast, and they should have listened to every episode so far. if not shame rings bell, then, being a teacher, sometimes you need a week. You need some downtime, and that's downtime from everything, even if it's watching rubbish TV or whatever, sometimes you've got to switch the brain off. Anyway, that was my ramble. I know for a fact you had an exciting, at least exciting couple of days, because I saw your YouTube video.
Yeah. But
So
I've done quite a bit actually this week.
go for it.
I mean, the house is an absolute tip.
Yeah,
Um, you
that's
mean,
half
yeah,
the
you can see over my shoulder. You don't have to agree with me.
I was
Jeez.
agreeing that the houses become tips. It's acceptable. It's what happens.
No, oh, yeah. I mean, the last couple of days, it's just been getting on top of piles of washing, before school runs and so on tomorrow. After this, I'm going to go and make packed lunches and, all that kind of jazz. But yeah, this week has been um, quite busy in some like self-imposed deadlines, really.
We
So,
like a self-imposed deadline.
well, yeah. I mean, if you don't have a self-imposed deadline, then you don't have any direction. You don't have any motivation.
Hmm. Well,
If
it
you
just goes
got
on forever.
if you set a deadline and saying, you know, X date, it has to be done.
Hmm.
Okay, well, get up, go do it. That's kind of the mindset that I've done. So I think I mentioned before I've been writing a book.
Yeah, I think you did. You definitely mentioned it to me, but
Yeah, I think I mentioned it on here,
yeah, I'm sure you would have
maybe.
done.
If
Maybe
not, I'm
he's writing
writing
a
a
book.
book. Well, actually, no. Now it's past tense. I've written a book.
Ooh.
The book is
It's,
finished.
it has a front cover and everything.
It does, and I've sent it off to the publisher,
Hmm.
and my proof copy is hopefully on its way to me in the next couple of days or so. So yes, all being well, when we go to the photography show next month,
We'll have some books.
or yeah, in about 2.5, 3 weeks time.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's coming up quite quickly. Yeah, I'll have some books to talk about and show.
Slash pout tout and
Yes, here, buy my book on the darkroom.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was
so yeah,
disappointed it wasn't one with a little like finger where, like when you read The Very Hungry Caterpillar. I was kind of hoping for a book like that, if I'm honest.
well, like a little cardboard thing of a,
And
I
enlarge it
suppose you
with
could use it.
eyes.
Yeah, I suppose you could use it for dodging and burning with a hole, couldn't you?
Yeah. The very expensive enlarger.
See, look, here's the thing. So we've just done 10 minutes of deep political conversation about your week, and then within 2 minutes talking about mine, we're talking about the hungry caterpillar.
I can't help it. My brain doesn't stay on focus very long. I know. Trapped in a grown-up's body.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, the
Sorry, go on.
book Light Paper Time is a darkroom guide of sorts. So sort of aimed at people who understand a bit about the darkroom, but maybe don't have any experience or might have done it at school and then not been anywhere near it for 20 years and kind of want to, get back into it. So that's kind of where it's aimed rather than people who will, know what they're doing with
Yeah.
confidence
Y
anyway. But hopefully there's something there for those people too.
so I mean, I'm going on it's something that I'm gonna sort of show to some of my sort of more advanced students and see what
Oh,
they
thank you very
do with it.
much.
It's alright, Gotta support our team of 2.
So yeah, so that's one thing. The other thing I've been doing, again, self-imposed deadline, is fulfilling my obsessions.
Steady on,
I know. So yeah, my favorite photographer, without question, is Eugene Smith.
obviously.
I've watched, I think, every documentary about him. I have every major publication of his work.
Mm,
There's a couple of particular Life magazines I want to get my hands on still, which I don't have.
yeah,
So that'll be Nurse Midwife and oh god, it's gone in my head. There's another one I need
okay.
out of like the big picture stories that he did, and just I've got a mind blank.
I'm trying to think what you got the biggies.
I've got the biggies. I've got
Yeah,
Country Doctor,
Minamata.
got Minamata, which is beautiful.
Mm,
I might go and watch that tonight, maybe. Maybe
yeah.
not.
Do you know what?
Maybe it's a bit deep for a Sunday night before going back to work.
Might depress you a bit.
Yeah.
Could
Anyway,
probably do with something a bit more light-hearted. Maybe Pecker.
God, that's a terrible film.
It's a bloody awful film, but it's funny.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm trying to think what else.
Anyway,
Yeah, back on
anyway,
topic again,
back
sorry.
on topic. Here we go. So on Friday just gone, so this was the 20th of February, it was the anniversary of the life publication of Eugene's photos in the Welsh Valley. So there's a very famous photo in there that most people have seen, and even people outside of photography have seen it in some form along the way, like a history book, maybe. Mm. And it's of three Welsh miners coming home from the pits, and their faces are completely covered in coal. And they're looking back over their shoulders towards work. And in the background of the photograph, you see rows of little terrace houses on the hillside being where they're going back to. And I've always loved that photo. You know, I've always loved that photo.
Yeah. Did you have a copy of it at uni?
I think I had my computer screensaver or
That
wallpaper or
yeah,
something for a
something like
while.
that, yeah.
But yeah,
I always associate that image with you in uni, weirdly.
I've just always loved it. And even when we were at uni in South Wales, and literally, I know this now, about half an hour's drive
God.
from where it was,
Yeah.
we never went.
No, mind you, we were young and dumb
Naive and
and drinking cider all the time, so driving wasn't really an option. I'd say cider, actually. Let's be honest, whiskey and Guinness was more likely, not at the same time.
no, but there was a particular cider that we used to drink at the pub at the riverside.
The Hanburys, what was it? Was
The
whatever it
Hanbury
was,
Arms and the
and what cider, what
Orchard
was it?
Gold,
Yeah, it was a nice cider.
the very nice summery,
Yeah,
very pale.
yeah, on a warm day with and the bangers and mash from that place, from the Hanbury
The
Arms.
Hunter's Chicken for me.
Yeah, but either I mean, I specifically remember a pint of that cider and a bangers and mash was a definite win.
Anyway, if you
But
enjoy
yeah,
this part of the conversation, please tune into our other podcast, which is reviews of pubs. No,
food, food we've eaten and missed. There is a link to a
okay,
photography story there, but we'll go back to it.
yeah, right, okay. I'm going to carry
Continue
on with this.
back
I'm
on
going to
task. Sorry.
back on
Yes.
task. Here we go. So, yes, I drove to Wales on Monday because I'm sad and I've read everything conceivable about Eugene Smith. I know that he used Kodak Double X as his film stock for those photos. And we know this from Paul Cabot's book, Creative Photography in Wales,
Yes, we do.
and also a BBC documentary from 2008.
Which doesn't look like it was filmed on potato.
Mm. So,
So that's my comment on most BBC documentaries on photography now because they're all so old.
I know I mean, it hasn't aged well, to be honest, in terms of style.
Not a lot of them have, to be fair.
No,
Never
but
mind.
it's still a very good documentary. It's called Lost
Yeah.
Images of Eugene Smith. If you can track it down, it is worth an hour of your life to watch. So I know what he's using. I know from another book what length of lenses he likes to use. I have the same.
Mhm.
So I made sure I went with that. I know what developer he used because, again, I'm that sad. So my idea was, I don't know how well I did this, but my idea was to go to the same place. So this is a village called Coedeli in the Rhondda Valley. Photograph the same spot as that photograph now, using the same film stock, which is a Sydney film. So I got that from This Is How I Roll Film, developed in Kodak D76, which is his favorite developer.
Using the
Used the
Aggo.
same length for lenses. All these things were all set in stone. I was doing it. I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the car. I'm driving down the M4. It's raining the whole way there. I get to Wales. It stops raining.
A moment of brilliance.
I know. Fantastic. So I get there. I park the car, I sort of have a wander around. The place is basically a ghost town. It's a few cars drive through. I see someone walking from the end of a street, but they're gone by the time I get up to them. All the doorways have mobility handrails in the doorways and net curtains, which are yellowing.
I've already sort of seen a little bit of this, but I can from your description, I've got the mental image. You know, I can see this.
So yeah, I'm wandering around. I know I did a couple of video calls with you to try and make you jealous at the time.
You did. I was rather knocked. I was doing laundry, but hey, I've got clean pants, so who cares?
I've got a washing pile.
I'm glad I can only see you from the waist up. Anyway,
Now, what did you put in that tea?
it's not even tea anymore.
It's just gin.
Just gin.
And yeah, I found the spot where that photograph was made, and it's now completely overgrown. So you
Rather
can't see it
disappointing.
at all. Very disappointing, very frustrating. But I still made a photo at that same spot.
Mm.
Um, but if you go up the hill, what was at one time a coal mine is now a solar farm.
Well, I suppose it's a natural progression in some
Yeah, I
respects. You know.
I kind of like that sort of that history in in that part of the landscape being energy production. So
Mm.
in the 1950s, it was it was coal. 70 odd years later, it's now renewable energy through there's some wind turbines up there as well. It's very windy at that
Yeah.
particular
West
spot.
Wales.
So I found a spot where you can see the solar farm in the foreground and you can look over the trees to the rows of houses in the background.
Mm.
Um, Switched to a longer lens because I was a bit further away making the photographs. There's this old boy called Rob who is 78. He's always lived there. He used to climb
Mm.
up to the slag heaps when he was a little boy.
Mm.
He comes to tell me off because I'm not on the footpath anymore. I'm on his farmland.
Cool.
I know.
Dangerous trespasser.
I thought it was okay because I walked up to the edge of the fence. I didn't realize that the area between the footpath and where the fence was also a no go.
So I mean, to be fair, honest mistake. Let's be honest. You know.
Yeah. And he was all right. He let me make a portrait of him. I'm quite pleased with as well.
Yeah.
So I did all of this. I then went home, developed the photographs, got into the darkroom, printed them, trying to print them like Eugene would have.
So drunk.
There was whiskey involved, but trying to print with his sense of like tones. He would print quite dark,
Yeah.
and then he would kind of recover the highlights by bleaching areas of the print. I can't do it.
No, it didn't work for you.
I I can't print that dark. I He had a vision. He was seeing a future of the print, and he was able to do that.
Well, it's like the pre-visualization that you do when you're making your images, but on a next level, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I can do that with the camera. I can say, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and this bit will be a bit darker and whatever. And I can envision how the print will look when I'm standing in a field being told off by a farmer who's 2 years older than the photograph I'm recreating.
Yeah.
But I can't do that when I'm in the darkroom and I'm looking at a test strip and say,
Yeah.
well, that's the one I want. I'm not going, okay, that's one I want. I now need to go extremely past it and
Yeah.
then pull
Bleed you back.
back in other ways. I can't do it. So I made the prints the best I could. I
Yeah.
printed them my way, essentially. I couldn't print them his way. And yeah, and then I made a film of all this,
She's on YouTube. I watched it the other
which
day.
is thank you very much. So
You're
yeah,
welcome.
that's on YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, just sort of scroll down the page a bit,
And it's somewhere else
probably.
on here.
And it's probably on there, but I'll whack it in the show notes anyway. And also when the book is up live and so on, I'll go back to this episode and I'll chuck
Adding.
that in there as well.
Yeah.
Might as well. But yeah, so I made the film and I released the film on 20th of February, which, if you remember back 15 minutes ago when this ramble started, was the date of publication of those photographs in the first place. But
I
76 years in
later.
the future. Yeah.
Yeah. I kinda like that as it's a homage, isn't it? It's not a pastiche, it's a homage to his work. Um, and I like it when events work out like that, where you're sort of wandering around with your camera and somebody comes to give you a bollocking and actually end up making their portrait. That's the ultimate turn from if life gives you lemons, make lemonade sort of thing,
Yeah.
or if life gives you lemon, make a gin and tonic. It's that kind of that's the joy of photography, those moments where you can do something like that.
And I quite like how I was able to turn this no, I to get to where I was, you the footpath goes through some gates because obviously there's livestock roaming around occasionally. There weren't this particular day, but there was a sign there saying, dogs off lead at risk of being shot.
Yeesh. Yeah,
So this farmer is making it very clear if you trespass, there is risk of, you know,
being shot.
bullets flying. So he's coming and telling me off. And I think 20 years ago,
Mm,
if I'd gone there when we were at uni
yeah,
and seen that sign and then had that interaction with him, I've
mm,
been, oh, I'm really sorry, bye, bye. And
yeah,
I would have scarpered. I don't think I would have had the guts to go, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize this is what I'm doing. Would you mind if I made a portrait of you?
yeah. Well, I mean, that comes with age, doesn't it? You get cantankerous and grumpy for a start off. Your back starts to hurt, and then you decide, "I'll take the picture. I'll ask the question. I'll take the picture." You know, it comes with age and practice, really, doesn't it?
Now, I know on some level,
Mm.
you're talking about both of us, but the tone of your voice, this is very much like you're sort of digging at me. Can I just remind you that I'm only a year older than you
Yes, it was
and you
both. I
have
would
less
say.
hair?
I have no hair.
I know you're one of the few people I can actually say that to.
Yeah, no. As I say, well, I'm loving this now. I've got used to it. I save a fortune on hair dye now. Now I can buy more film. No, no, I mean both of us, But I think that while the aches and pains come with old age, which we are rapidly approaching, let's be honest. I made some comment about middle-aged men the other day, and somebody just turned around and went, "That is you," and I was like, "Oh yeah, damn." But yeah, the benefit of it is that you do become a bit more like, "I'm gonna take that chance. I'm gonna ask the question. I'm gonna do it." You become less concerned about what people think of you. Not that I've ever been particularly bothered about what people think of me, but, you know, see some of my outfits, anybody who has ever seen my Instagrams. Before we get into a Beach-Wyld fashion show, let's move on from my outfits. Yeah, I was thinking, on top of the podcast, which we do, is we don't have our glorious ways of being creative. I know that you do blog posts as well, and I was thinking we should probably direct people to a few good blogs. So I think for the next couple of episodes, we should do some research. I was struggling to find myself things to read this week, having had the time to do it. There are only so many photography books wants to reread. Um, and I don't know about you, but I think we've discussed this before in the past, maybe not on the podcast. You reach a point with photographic theory books where you start to read the same thing rehashed,
Yeah.
you know? And while that's all well and good, it doesn't really make for great rereading.
A good example of that, and this actually kind of cropped up again a few days ago,
Mm,
was I've spoken about it on here and I've spoken about it on other podcasts where I've been, a guest for them for whatever reason.
yeah,
And that's around words like take, capture, shoot,
yeah.
and the insinuations that those
Link to that, yeah.
connotations have. And I wrote a blog article on 35mmc 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
Yeah, that'd
A
be about
while,
right.
yeah, it wasn't that long ago, but
It was just before Christmas, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
because it was when I had my hand was broken. I was feeling sorry for myself, so I could type, but I couldn't work a camera. So
yeah.
I did
So, yeah.
stuff, and I got a lot of backlash for it.
Hmm,
No, I was saying things that didn't need to be said, and it's
yeah.
I still stand by my views, and if people don't want to, that's fine. But
Yeah.
this came up again on Blue Sky from another photographer whose name I've forgotten right now.
Telling the story, I'll look through our WhatsApp and find it.
Oh, because I sent it to you, didn't I? There we go.
Yes, you did.
Um, where someone else, I think it might have been Andrew. I think it might have been a guy called Andrew. Had come up with the same kind of realization as me,
Mm.
and then someone else tagged me into it, and the conversation kind of got flowing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the same kind of those ideas. And then someone said something in there, which is, as you write, there's only so many theory books you can read before they repeat themselves.
Yeah.
Susan Sontag on photography.
Mhm. Yep.
The violence of photographic language. She
It's in there.
talks quite a lot about it in there.
Yep.
And I never enjoyed reading that book at you.
No.
So I'd kind of forgotten
Yeah.
about that element of it. At least in terms of conscious.
Yeah, it's
Subconsciously, it
there.
was still there.
Yeah, it's there in the background. It's one of those books where I've read it probably twice, once at uni and once since. I've read snippets of it or sections of it with students in the past as well, but I couldn't actually sit down and reread it now, I don't think. I think I've read too many other theory books now that it would just feel like regurgitating the same information. Although I do think she probably started it. I think a lot of that stuff is her first. Her
Yeah.
hers, maybe Levi Strauss, Walter Benjamin, and who else? Who's the other one? Berger, John Berger.
Mm.
They're kind of like the cornerstone, aren't they, really?
Go on then. I'm going to get you to narrow it down to one book.
What if I was gonna read one theory book?
So the one book of photographic theory that you would recommend above all others, what would it
I'm not
be?
in the office, which doesn't help me. You know this. I'm sat in the living room, which has taken me away from my bookshelf of dreams, the magical bookshelf. So one theory book only.
Mm.
Between the Eyes,
David
I
Levi
think.
Strauss.
Yeah, either that or
No, you say one. You said one.
all right, no, yeah, sorry, yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, Between the Eyes, I think that because it's very easily to read, it's approachable without being too wordy, which I do think Berger is a bit of a git for.
Not as
I
bad as
I
Camera Loose either.
I was about to say, although I do think that Bart's is even worse for it, but I do think as accessible, yeah, it's accessible theory. There's things like the Liz Wells anthologies as well.
Yeah. I like Between the Eyes. I remember when we had to read it at uni,
Mm,
it was something that I would take with me if I was traveling between London and Newport on
yeah,
uh, the National Rail or Megabus or whatever it was, because they were, some of the chapters, some of the essays were about a page long, others were about 10 pages long, but it was something that you could pick up while you're traveling and you could read a bit and not feel that you've lost your place when you are getting off the bus or,
yeah.
you know,
You can actually go back to it,
yeah,
and that's what I like about it. There are plenty of brilliant theory books, and I think I've probably bought them all. My bookcase actually sags in the middle, but you know, there's ultimately only so much theory you can argue about in photography, isn't there? How the image is made, how the image is perceived, what the intended meaning was, really. I mean, that's Stuart Hall's reception theory, the idea of intended meaning, negotiated meaning, and oppositional reading. There's only three ways to look at it. You agree with the photographer, you sort of agree with the photographer, you completely disagree with the photographer, and that's it.
yeah,
Above and beyond that, everything else is just a variant therein, isn't it? That doesn't mean that photography theory is dead, says the man waiting to hear about his PhD. Still, please read my thesis when done. But what it does say is it's quite difficult for new theory books to engage a new generation of photographers. And I find that difficult as a teacher because when you say to a kid, right, here's Camera Lucida, here's On Photography, those books are dated. by the things they talk about. They're not wrong, but they are
Thing
dated.
I think that's probably why we enjoyed Jeff Dyer so
Yes.
much. Was he certainly no, at that point, I'm trying to think, there's Work in the Room,
There's Work in the Room, there's The Ongoing Moment.
Ongoing Moment, that was the other one. I love Ongoing Moment. I love the circular nature of the
It
book and how it ends. Spoiler, it ends the same way that it starts, the way it travels backwards and forwards through time
well, it's almost like there's
and
pushback.
language. Yeah, but I think when Jeff Dyer was writing those books, it was quite contemporary
Mm,
for us. And
yeah,
having just spent a year of camera lucida and on photography,
mm,
it was refreshing.
yeah. He's done another one as well, which I've bought but not read yet, and I bought it a while ago, so I
Is
should have
that the
read it by now.
seesaw one?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah, I
haven't read that
haven't.
one either.
That's again, it's very dippable. Dippable? You know what I mean?
That's a new word.
That's a new word. TM, copyright, quick.
I'm looking forward to seeing what the
Summary for this episode is.
summary of this episode is using that word.
Yeah, but yes, it is. That's one that I need to actually finish or actually get past the first sort of 15 pages, I think. It's one of those ones where I'm like, I will come to it, but because it's a theory book that I've already seen and done the theory, it does get a bit samey. Sorry, I'm going to have to release a cat. That's what that noise was in the background. It's like living in a zoo.
Well, while you do that, I know without even thinking about it, without even looking at my shelves, I know what my one book would be. The documentary Impulse, Stuart Franklin.
Oh, yeah, the one that I lent to a student I've never got back. If
Yeah,
you're
that one.
that student listening, bring me my books back. I had to buy another copy on eBay.
So yeah, the documentary Impulse, which if you've not read it, is by Stuart Franklin, Magnum photographer, wonderful photographer. I've got a couple of his books as well.
You've got photography books, don't we?
I have photography books. Yeah, and it goes through the whole backbone of photographic history from a documentary standpoint, going back much earlier in the understanding of what documentary is than I'd perceived. And the first chapter goes back to cave paintings.
It does, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
And I remember when I first read this book, again, this was probably around 10 years ago, and going, oh my God, this is, these paintings on cave walls of hunting expeditions or telling a story through the cold winter months in pictures
Yeah.
of what they've done. It is documentary. And it was kind of an eye opening book for me. And I've probably put more post it notes in that one book than all my other theory books on the shelf together.
Yeah. Well, I think you find one that works for you. I mean, who would have thought that a couple of dyslexics would be sat discussing photographic theory books? Certainly not my English teacher.
Yeah.
I do think that there are brilliant tomes on photography, but often that can take away sometimes from the just making of images. I like to think that all that learning that we've done and all that learning we make our students do becomes subconscious, and then we just make the images. That yes, we have that knowledge, that thought process, but it isn't like I am going to take this picture. I'm going to make sure that that's in the shot because that symbolizes something. Da, 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 da. It's just you see the shot, you make the shot, and then when you look at it, you go, "I knew that there was a reason why I had that in the background, or why I
Mm.
that way." It's where it becomes the same way that you should be able to set aperture, shutter speed, all the technical stuff without thinking. Take a light reading, go shot. I think all that compositional philosophy should be there on that same impulse without people overthinking. Because you can tell when it's been overthought, can't you? When an early stage photography student who's just got their head around theory or just started to get their head around theory starts to like make sure that it's an image about romance, so there's a red rose in the background, or it's an image about death, so there's a gravestone or a skull, or there's basic semiotics are going on.
Yeah.
But it becomes as you develop, it becomes far more subtle. hopefully, you know? It's like art teacher bingo or or photography teacher bingo. Picture of half a skull with somebody's face on the other half. That's always a classic. I don't know if you get that, but I get that an awful lot.
No, I've not had my students have just done a documentary project
Mm,
where they choose something in their life to document, and they had not much time to do it.
yeah.
But the idea is that they go with something that they know, something they know well. So I introduce them to concepts like the day in the life.
Mm,
I go through the whole on being a photographer structure, the David
yeah.
Hearn School of Thought. And three of the students have done projects about being students at the college, which the first year I've had that many actually do that. Normally it would be like maybe one student doing it.
Mm,
But yeah, these students this year have gone with literally where they are, what they see in front of them
yeah.
as their starting point and their end point for
Mm,
their projects. And there's nothing wrong with that.
no.
But it's, yeah, I think it is probably the equivalent of what you're describing there.
Yeah, it's that kind of you see the same sort of ideas. I used to when I taught near Hull, I used to have a list of things that I never wanted to see photographs of, and, like, the Humber Bridge was number 1. Ultimately, I've done it myself, I've taken pictures of the Humber Bridge, I hold my hand
I
up.
know it was one that is in your portfolio for a long time, for
It was.
many years.
Yeah, and it was a good picture, but it's if you live locally, everyone's got a picture of the Humber Bridge from, like, every angle. It was number 1 on my list 'cause I was sick of seeing it, and it was you looking moody in a graveyard. Underneath it was your friend looking moody in a graveyard. You pretending to smoke. You actually smoking. Yeah. Anything that I will have to report to safeguarding. These kind of things. Like, please don't document these things that you're doing that we all know teenagers get up to, but we don't want to see.
Yeah,
You know? We all know that every teenager in the land has snuck a pint of beer or something or gone and drunk WKD on a park.
yeah,
But
everyone
I
does
don't
something
want you.
daft. Yeah,
Yeah, please don't bring me photographs of it. Just to clarify, none of my current students have done that, but in the past it has been a thing that appeared in a contact sheet. I'm like, you're 17. That would appear to be white lightning. Never mind, eh? Teenagers. Paying my mortgage since 2000 and God knows when. No, but yeah, we've rambled. I like a good ramble. Yeah, so photographically though, I think it should become impulse. It should become second nature to think without, when I say think, to not have to think about the way you're composing these images. It should just be second nature to you that you're thinking on what it is that you're going to make an image of. Well, yeah, that was a random theory one.
I think that's quite nice to see in our students as they progress. So
Yeah.
level two is the group I've just been talking about. So it's essentially the same as GCSE level of photography. And then we've got our level three, first years and second years. So
Mm,
like A
yeah.
levels.
Yeah.
And seeing level twos in the case of, all right, this is what's in front of me. That's what I can work with for photographing. And seeing how they progress up to end of level three. And they're
Mm,
going off into the world, going off to uni maybe.
yeah.
And there's actually some really nice thought out ideas
Yeah.
behind good images, not just starts of ideas or starts of technical.
Mm.
Everything's coming together, and it's nice to see that progression happen.
Yeah, I think we're lucky in that we get to see that on a regular basis.
Mm.
You take them from. I always say to my look at when they go, "Oh, this is a rubbish shoot," and I go get your first sketchbook. Go look at what you started at, and look at where you are now. And as yet, I've never had anyone go, "Well, I was better then." Thankfully, they've never turned around and gone to me, "You've ruined my photography ability." But you do. You look back at what you did, and you're always going to be learning and improving. And I think anyone who says, as a creative individual, photographer, artist, filmmaker, whatever, if you say I'm done learning, done developing, then just throw your gear out and go work in an office.
The one I like to do with students along those lines is if we're doing anything that's sort of like drawing skills, so there's no storyboards maybe, or
Yeah.
understanding lights and composition, whatever it is. And you always get students, particularly for photography students over art students. You're like, I can't draw. I'm
Yeah.
rubbish. That's why I chose photography.
Yep.
So I do a fictional auction of Basquiat's paintings,
Okay. Yeah. I like that.
and it's great because most of the students, certainly at level 2, beginning level 3, aren't really aware of Basquiat. In terms of their knowledge of the art world, it's largely the big names of European painting
Yeah.
plus Warhol.
Yeah, as I say, it's your usual suspects, isn't it, you know?
Yeah, they know Van Gogh, they might know Matisse.
Yeah.
Mm,
Klimt, maybe. Yeah.
they won't know that there's a difference between Monet and Manet.
No.
And you put a basket. So, how much would you pay for this? And someone go, I wouldn't pay for that. You have to pay me to take it,
Yeah.
or you get £5. So okay, and I just get it. It's like an auction. I hear five.
Yeah.
Do I hear more? A 10 over there, and just keep taking it up until you get to the point of right. This is actually sold at auction at Christie's or Sotheby's or wherever
Yeah.
it is for X amount of $1 billion.
Yeah.
It's a stick man.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
not,
cool stick man, but it's
but
still
it's
a
a
stick
stick man.
man.
Yeah. But I think that's, I mean, so that's an important thing. I think as well, I mean, for my spec for the, photographers, they have to do some drawing. But
Mm.
I say to them, a drawing can be just the light's gonna go there, the model's gonna be there, the subject's there. That's all it has to be, you know?
A
It's
cool one
often
you could
dealt
do
with.
with that is just thinking Lewis Bush. So he was one of my tutors at LCC.
Mm,
I think he's still there. He's been doing his PhD as well.
yeah.
So I think he's
All the
sort of,
best people are.
I know, all right. You're not doing yours yet.
No, I know. I'm just assuming they're gonna go, "Yes."
But something that he did when he was on the MA course before was he built a camera obscura, so a portable camera obscura, and he would set it up outside significant public buildings. And he put a piece of paper on it, put his head under the hood, and he would draw
Yeah,
what he was looking at on the camera obscura. And he would stop the drawing when he was interrupted by a security guard, a policeman,
yeah.
whatever it
Person of
was,
authority.
person of authority, and he'd stop. So some of them, he's got like a dot
Yeah.
because he got stopped really, really quickly. Other times he'd done like this quite detailed
Sketches, yeah.
sketch using the camera obscura before someone had gone, "Who is this nutter? Let's
Yeah.
get rid of
Whereas
him."
yeah. But that is the original photography, isn't it? Camera obscura is where it starts. It was originally a tool for copying pictures, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Essentially. You can't draw, here, use this thing, which is probably where the idea that if you can't draw, take photography has come from.
yeah,
I mean, I'd argue there are similarities between photography and fine art, traditional drawing, etc. But in the same way that, brothers are similar, they're not the same, but, they share some similarities. Because I always think that fine art can create from nothing because they don't have to be wherever they are, drawing, painting, whatever. Photography is sort of like, we actually have to go there. You can't create from nothing. Well, you can now with AI and Photoshop, but in reality, proper
but
proper photography, you have to.
if we're starting to get into the realms of AI, I'm
Well,
sorry. At that point, we are moving beyond photography into something new, something
well, it's like, yeah,
different.
it's not photography, is it? That's digital art, which is
Yes,
another.
it's computer generated art of some
Yeah,
form.
which is a whole nother. That's another episode.
Yeah, that's one I know you keep putting on the list, and I keep sort of backing away from
Yeah,
that
no, I
one.
agree. It's now isn't quite the time. I think 6 months' time is going to be approximately the right time to talk AI.
Okay,
I have some beliefs that in the next 6 months we're going to see some fairly terrifying AI additions to things like Photoshop and Lightroom, from what I've been reading. So that should be interesting.
God, I haven't been reading.
No, I mean, it's interesting. It's just the line between photography and digital art is blurring more and more each day. Deep philosophical thought. We have rambled across the border today.
Here we have I mean, this is our journeys to work. This is what we do.
Yeah, I mean, we had a week's worth of mindless waffle to get out, really.
No, this is what we go through every morning, with the exception of, "Oh, you broke up. Can you repeat that?"
Yeah,
This idiot in a Fiat 500 can't drive,
yeah. Why are you doing 30 and a 60?
and that lorry came out of nowhere.
Yeah. How did he miss a bright green car? An occasional rude word and a bit of horn honking and cursing potholes. Actually, that's my biggest one.
They're terrible around here as well.
Yeah, I don't know what I pay road tax for. Grumpy old man moment.
Right? Okay.
Right.
I think we stop at that, because
Yeah.
we're starting to get going too much.
As I say, everyone enjoy our waffles.
Yeah, I know. I know. Right. Going back to photography,
What have we got coming up?
the well, you had a list there of the next couple of episodes.
I do have a list.
We
Hang on.
got some guests coming up.
We have got some guests. Hang on, let me look. I had it up and I've closed it. 1 minute. Honestly, amateur hour here. Okay, what we got? We got the photography show coming up.
Is that the next one?
That's what it says.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh, blimey!
record on the
I need
14th,
to
out on the
actually get
18th.
my presentation done.
I need to book some parking.
I haven't booked my parking yet either.
Remind me in the morning. I'll remind
Okay,
you. You remind me.
cool. All right. Yeah. So yeah, next one we're recording at the photography show. So if you're going to be there on Saturday 14th, I'm
Seems.
talking in the afternoon on the analog stage, or analog showcase, or whatever they're calling it this year. I can't remember. It's some fancy title. And I'll be talking about the darkroom. So if you are interested in going to the show, there is various discount codes that different companies have. The one they're given to all the speakers is SPK26. So yeah, that saves you 20% on your tickets. Basically, we see none of that. That doesn't give anything to us. But there you go. Save 20% if you want to go to Birmingham NEC. But we're going to be there. We'll be going around talking to people. So if you want to come say hi, please do. If you want to have a chat on the podcast, please
Yep,
do.
we'll be ready. We've got new toys to test out and everything. Might even have a short video. Could bring one of my gimbals. Justify the expense of having it. Do we say who's on after that, or do we leave them in suspense? Do we
I'm on the
risk
fence.
it?
Let's leave it, because I'm on the
Yeah.
fence.
Let's not risk it in case anything goes wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we've got some quite cool guests coming up.
Yeah, we've got a couple of good ones coming up. Then we've got photo walks and street photography coming up as well.
Yeah, that's one we were talking about the other day.
Yeah. So yeah, we got a few. You've got the latent hour coming up as well on. Oh, hang on, when's that next one?
It'll be, well, from when we release this, it'll be last one in March, last Thursday of March.
Last Thursday of March. Okay. So that'll be the.
But yeah, last Thursday of the month is typically when it is.
There we go. So you got latent hour as well. So yeah, there's events. There's things happening. Get in touch, people. We do read and respond to any feedback we get, even the mean ones. We haven't had any mean ones. We're brilliant. Everyone loves us.
We got some nice ones actually this week, didn't we, on YouTube?
We did. I really liked. I mean, there's a couple of nice questions, but I really enjoyed, or really felt that we'd hit home, was the one on YouTube about it felt like walking into the pub. I was like, that is exactly what we've been asking. That's what we were aiming for, and that somebody has come out and said it vindicates that we're actually, while completely waffly, doing what we aim to do. So that was. Do we give them a shout out if I can find it? Let's see if YouTube will load fast enough for me to find it. Well, thank you, person on YouTube.
After all that.
After all that, never mind. Thank you very much. We love your feedback. Send it to us. Now Tom Bub's going to go have possibly a strong coffee to recover from this, and I'm going to remove the duck, the cat, and shut the parrot up.
So I've got a python staring at me right now, actually.
Yeah, like I said, we're living in zoos. Good night, everybody. Have a lovely week, and we will see you in our next episode.
Yes, and well, that'll be in person.
Oh, yeah. Come see us. We'll have branding and everything.
Right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.